Good evening. I'd like to draw this regular meeting of the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln to order and welcome everyone here this evening. We'll go through our regular roll call as we have guests this evening. We have, and I'll deal with those attending at that time. At this moment, I'd like to ask everyone to rise for the national anthem. Welcome Chair Ellen Caslin to our meeting tonight, and he will be coming forward later on as a delegation. Councillor John Pachariva and Councillor Paul McPherson have sent their regrets for this evening. To my left is seated Councillor Diane Regima, Councillor Wayne McMillan. To my right, Councillor Rob Foster, Councillor Dave Thompson, Councillor Lynn Timmers, and Councillor and Deputy Mayor Tony Bernay. On my right sits William Colossa, the Clerk of the Town of Lincoln, and on my left, Mr. Mike Kirkopoulos, the CAO. In the back row, we have Carrie Beattie, our communications, our senior communications officer, and also Angela Safani, who is our treasurer. I think that's everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any declarations of interest? There being none, confirmation of the agenda. Anyone with any wishes? I want to advise Council that I will be bringing forward a notice of motion. The purpose of the advice at this time is that I will be requesting a waiving of the rules of procedure in order to present that notice as a motion when we get down to that part of the agenda. Next on the agenda is the minutes of the Council's regular meeting of February the 21st, 2017, and I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Regima, that the minutes of the February 21st, 2017 regular meeting of Council be adopted as circulated. Are there any errors or omissions? Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? There being none, we will move on to the Mayor's report. Ladies and gentlemen who are observing these proceedings through Cogeco, we welcome you this evening. We welcome those who are in the audience. And Cogeco is here to help us in our quest to ensure that proceedings of our meetings are available publicly. I want to bring to your attention, ladies and gentlemen, that the town continues to experience considerable growth and development. This really presents an opening of opportunities for us to grow and for our urban centers to develop. And that means that our town-wide sense of place becomes clearer. It's all part of adding diversity in housing types and size along with the more compatible design features. And we experienced this in the last couple of weeks when we actually went looking to see what kind of development and design has been going on over the last 17 years to make sure that we are starting to see the most contemporary design features in the homes that are being built in Lincoln. We're living in a place for our seniors, for our youth, where jobs and education and opportunities are core to the focus of developing our sense of place. And family amenities in the sport, recreation, and culture area, community activities, along with access both east and west via the GO are necessary. Many people are using the GO bus, and although all the amenities for it are not in place, those who need to get to school are getting there, as well as those who require that transportation for work. It helps to retain young families in our community and retirees who come here for the natural beauty of Lincoln, which is protected for the most part, and also their appreciation of agricultural innovation and crop development that supports food production and food quality and quantity. We're starting to see and have more conversations about greenhouse rebuilds and expansions. And even in the greenhouse industries, we are starting to see diversity in crops. The West Niagara Mayors continue with our support of a West Niagara healthcare facility, and Mayor Joyner and I heard a delegation last week on private-public funding models, so we expect to hear more in this regard as time goes by. For those of you in the ag industry, a Niagara Irrigation Strategy Committee has been formed, chaired by Bill Shank, and it has been endorsed by the Region Agricultural Policy Committee. This committee has begun its work to find funding to develop a position paper on that irrigation strategy. The mayors of Niagara-on-the-Lake, St. Catharines, and Lincoln are represented on the committee. And Lincoln's Regional Councillor Bill Hodgson chairs the APAC committee, the Agricultural Policy Committee. I'm bringing a notice of motion forward tonight to garner Regional Council support for the work of the Irrigation Strategy Committee, and that letter will be circulated to all of the local area municipalities. We discussed the Coldest Night of the Year project at Sport, Recreation, and Culture, but I want to reinforce that it was a great staff, community, and council initiative, and our Team Lincoln raised over $3,200, and we want to thank everyone in the community, whether you were part of Team Lincoln in-house or whether you were part of an interest group or a volunteer group in the community. We thank you all, and for all of those of you who supported them, either walking or by opening up your pockets. I was part of a delegation with Chair Ellen Caslin and the GO working group to visit Niagara Falls, New York. I saw the most wonderful train station there. Part of it was a very, very old customs house, certainly from the early 1800s, but added to it new track and train access. We saw considerable security, the future plans and we heard about the future plans to improve service to New York City. And it really is all about quality of life in Lincoln, traveling east, and Niagara Falls and west to Toronto. Choices and opportunities is what we are really working at here. And intermunicipal transit continues to be a topic of conversation, and that intra-municipal transit is something that we will be moving forward with a pilot on, hopefully near the end of the summer. I attended as a delegation to the DSBN board regarding the ARC. And while our first choice in Lincoln is to have all of our community schools open, we acknowledge that the quality of curriculum and teaching staff will best support our youth culturally and in their ability to compete for university, college, and specialized trades if we have the right location and the right facilities. On April the 26th, once again, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce will sponsor the Mayor's State of Lincoln Address and Luncheon. For 2 years, I have been speaking about the development of our operational plans as a council, and it's time now to share the effectiveness of our execution and how you in our town are benefiting. So we'll spend, most of our planning will be essentially done. The staff had a meeting today and we're fine-tuning those plans. And by the end of this council, hopefully all of those plans will have been executed. So ladies and gentlemen, as always, through my time at the beginning of each council meeting and other public engagements, I hope to send a message that let people know that Lincoln will deliberately set itself apart by instilling consideration and a sense of achievement in our everyday lives. And you all are part of those achievements, and this is how we do it here. Many thanks on behalf of council. There is no regional councilors report this evening, and we will move into council reports. And I just want to remind those watching that council reports has become quite an important part of our agenda. We have many ways of communicating with people, but this is a way to hear firsthand from the councilors where they've been, what their priorities are on your behalf, and how they are fulfilling each of their portfolios. So I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Tony Brunet. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Two quick reports. The first, I traveled down to the region on February 28th for the Transportation Steering Committee, at which time the committee received a report with regards to the Niagara Regional Multimodal Transportation Master Plan that's been undergoing. This is a futuristic document, Niagara 2041, fostering an environment for economic prosperity. So there was quite a dialogue after the presentation. I'll just quickly go through, about the plan and some of the highlights. So the Transportation Master Plan is how we grow, how we go. Will direct how Niagara Regional's transportation system will be designed, who will accommodate, and what investments will be needed. The TMP focuses on all modes of transportation, including walking, cycling, public transit, cars, and goods movement. The vision of the plan is in 2041, Niagara Region will be supported by a transportation network that will help establish Niagara as a leader in building, preserving, and enhancing livable communities, economic development, tourism, sustainable transportation practices, and the emerging shared economy. We had a discussion about, what the team has heard as they're out into the community for the public meetings. And just quickly, we heard enhanced GO train service to the Niagara region. There was discussion and from the public about more crossings, whether it be the Queenie or the Welland Canal, improved crossings across the Niagara Escarpment, and supporting efficient goods movement, accommodating movements of farm equipment. Those are some of the things, some of the highlighted items that were heard. Some of the silos that have been, kind of set up through this plan. Transportation as a catalyst for change, connecting the region, meeting the needs of residents, and taking advantage of new technology. So through the Transportation Master Plan, there's been 7 action areas that have been keyed on, and those are complete streets, active transportation, transit, roads, goods movement, travel demand management, and transportation system management. We had a number of discussions. There are a number of mayors that sit on the regional transportation, so there was lots of good discussion, on making sure that all shareholders, all stakeholders are involved in this process. There are meetings with the ministry, the MTO, scheduled for later in the month. I know that Councillor Councillor Timms certainly wants to make sure that we have some involvement through the Seaway and the federal transport minister. So there was some great discussion in talking about key recommendations from the study and strategy. And, as we move forward with next steps, the Transportation Master Plan, refining the goals and policies and recommendations based on the feedback, and then the draft plan will then come to the Regional Council for public review and finalization of the Transportation Master Plan. So this continues to move forward, and one of the interesting things to remember is that it is a futuristic document, but by 2041, I believe the forecast is 160,000 people moving to the Niagara region. So we've got considerable growth, and it's important that we continue to move this Transportation Master Plan along. The other one, much more brief, I had the opportunity to go to the Royal Canadian Legion on Saturday, where I participated as a judge in the public speaking contest. There was about 20 students there from Beamsville and Grimsby, grades 4 to 6 in the junior category, and the intermediate category of 7 to 8. It lasted for about 5 hours. It was a great event. There was probably 120 parents and grandparents and supporters there for these students that were participating. I think it's great, in the world of social media, where we all hide behind digital and computers. It's great to see these young students up in front of a mic and articulating their passions about whatever they wanted to speak on. So it was a great event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, both for representing Council at that event and also for your continued champion of transportation of all types, really. You're right out there. Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I also participated at the West Niagara Coldest Night of the Year walk. This year it was held at Grimsby High School. There were about 220 walkers, and the overall goal was to raise $60,000, and I believe they came just under that. It was a fabulous event, great turnout. They had a chili competition at the end of it. It was really, really great, to a very worthy cause. Saturday morning, I was down at the Fleming Center for the brand new opening of our Rinkside Cafe. Brand new food vendor in the concourse there, a local family, Tony and Stacy Palumba, and it was just great. I think they're going to do really, really well, so I wish them all the success. And the fries are back in town. And hot dogs. They were flying off the counter, so thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I just had a couple of items, certainly of good importance in regards to the local area. I attended the 2017 CanWISP conference in Ottawa. Had meetings with Industry Canada in and around the coverage areas in both Lincoln and Niagara in general, with the fact that the federal government seems to think we're well connected, and I have reason to believe that we're not. Certainly, it was an interesting conversation with the folks from Industry Canada, and hopefully we're going to be doing some work together to get the maps updated so that things are actually the way they're supposed to be. And along the same vein, I actually had a meeting with MP Badaway from Welland in and around the Connect to Innovate program, forcing the same issue in around the mapping that's been done by the federal government and the inaccuracies, and sort of putting it out there that we need to have some more funding in our area, both Lincoln and Niagara, for rural broadband internet. So anyway.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. First of all, I participated in as a co-chair of the Digital Task Force in mid-February. So, and that particular group is coming along nicely.
So she's your AMO.
This is part of the AMO commitment.
Thank you.
This is a fascinating one. The province of Ontario is pushing big time for thought processes around making municipalities more digital and digitally acceptable. So actually, I have to admit, I'm quite proud of the fact that they did invite me to be the co-chair of that. It's, I think my IT background actually might have had something to do with it. But Just a reminder to everybody, OSAM is coming up the beginning of May, so if you're going to be signing up as a delegate, consider doing it shortly. The OSAM conference this year is a discussion around when urban meets rural, and so there's an awful lot of overlap with our municipality. It is in the town of Blue Mountain, so it's actually a very pretty place as well. Being as I am on the board of AMO, I have my room already for the AMO conference, so they put us right into the main center, which is kind of nice. This is a kind of a side bonus. But anyway, I would just suggest that everybody start thinking about the AMO conference as well, and start getting yourselves moving along with that. And just a quick comment. On Saturday, I had friends in from Australia, and I gave them a tour through the municipality. I started at the Fleming Centre. They saw their first hockey game there. It was also a good opportunity to see the new and improved Rinkside Cafe for me. And then I took them to a couple of wineries in town, and I'll tell you, people are just blown away with our municipality. And you know, I remind them over and over again, Lincoln has Niagara on the Lake beaten every which way. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McMillan, can you beat that?
No. No. As you mentioned earlier, Madam Mayor, the school board met on February the 28th last week, and I was present to hear the delegations that were there concerning the possible closure of South Lincoln High School and Grimsby Secondary School and Banesville Secondary School. This was the very last time that there was any time allotment for public input before the board makes a final decision. And there were 4 delegations that presented to the board that evening. 2 very well-informed and very passionate representatives from West Lincoln, and they were there representing their citizens group who were opposed to the closing of South Lincoln High School. Mayor Bentley was there, Mayor Bentley of Grimsby. He presented the reasons why the residents, many of the residents in Grimsby think that their school should remain open. And as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, you too were a delegation at that meeting. What I took from your remarks was the stress that you made to the board that there needs to be a substantial enrollment to support varied curriculum for the students, and it's one of the reasons why the school board is looking at the amalgamation of the 3 schools, so that there is that enrollment that can support varied curriculum. So there was no decision at that meeting on Tuesday. The board has planned their next meeting for the 28th of March, and that's when the trustees will vote on the staff recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Njima?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick things, very quick. Happy to hear Councillor Brunei that the attendance at the speaking contest was so high. There was one year when I was there, and I think there was only about 4 or 5 speakers, and so to hear that there's 20 speakers and that many people supporting them is great. I was also at the Coldest Night of the Year fundraiser. Great results. I think I heard that they set the goal 20,000 higher and almost met it. I don't know if I'm right on that, but I did hear that night, so that's great. And the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, I'm on the committee planning the Mayor's Golf Tournament, and we're working hard on that. It's May 24th, and you'll be hearing more about that before it comes up.
Great, thank you very much. Well, councillors, you have great diversification in your interests. I think as time goes on, we see, the interest that goes well beyond the community. It's benefiting us, and I hope that that our audience also is able to see how keeping your eyes on the outside is often a way to make yourself grow or to help yourself grow on the inside. We move move on now to delegations and invite Chair Alan Caslin to come forward to give us a report on the state of the region. And I'm sure that Chair Caslin's speech has probably been timed down to the last second. However, as usual, when it's an important matter such as this, Chair, if you go over by 5 minutes, we're not going to, we won't be raising our, we won't be raising the bar.
Well, thank you. Thank
go
you,
right
Madam
ahead.
Chair. Thank you very much for inviting me today to be able to speak to you all about what we've accomplished in council in the first 2 years and where we're going in the next two. I'll go over it rather quickly, but if you want me to slow down or you want to go over anything else after we're finished, I want to make sure I keep it within the 10 minutes. I know you've got other things on the agenda, so I'll try and do that. So what have we done? Let's look at the progress that we've made through the first 2 years of the 4-year term. Our term is consistent with your term, obviously. And although we're only 50% through the term, at least when this report was crafted, we're 60% through our strategic goals. And there's a lot of good news that we've got to talk about in terms of what we've achieved. We've acted in a very proactive and collaborative manner to try and achieve more than we would otherwise, and it seems to have worked for us. For instance, investment in advanced manufacturing, as you'll see, the General Electric plant in Welland is a great example of one of those times where we all pulled together to create something that individually we probably would not have achieved. The Team Niagara Action Plan, trying to get the Gateway Economic Zone kicked off, the CIPs that we've initiated, creating some almost 500 jobs and about $23 million in new development. Also, you'll note that we're foreign trades zone point designation. It's a mouthful, but this is something that's really interesting and something that's important that hasn't been fully realized yet in Niagara. As you may or may not know, Niagara is the only foreign trade zone in Ontario and only one of 7 in Canada. That said, the meaning of it is really for people or industry like General Motors, General Electric, Ford, that would be importing a lot of product only to export it once they've added value. For instance, if they built an engine or built a vehicle, they would be bringing parts in from all over the world, and those parts would attract duties and taxes when they came in, only to have the company claw them back when they left if they were exported within 4 years. In this case, in Niagara, we don't need to collect the taxes and duties. They're tax and duty free so long as the end product leaves Niagara within 4 years. So something that a large company would save a lot of administrative time and cost. Obviously, you know more. You know about the daily GO Rail service. It's been talked about tonight, and that's something that we keep pushing on, and we're looking to get further on, as you'll see it on this page as well. We know that the provincial government has projected a 2021-2023 schedule for Niagara, but I can tell you that we're working hard on trying to accelerate that schedule and get it here sooner. If we, as a region, pick up some of the work and assist the province, assist Metrolinx in accomplishing that, I think that will go a long way to accelerating our schedule. Backing up one step, we've invested $2 additional million in regional roads and infrastructure. We heard loud and clear that our roads need some help, and we're trying to do that. On the intermunicipal transit front, that's a very interesting one for Niagara. This is the first time that we're going to try and get all 3 transit providers in the region to work together with one commission. And I know you've probably heard a lot about it already, but this is Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and Welland, and a lot of them already offer services to other municipalities in Niagara, but this is to get together to create one commission in Niagara to offer services to everyone in Niagara. Picture a place where living in Niagara, you would not need to have a car. You could get anywhere in Niagara without having to have a car. That's our goal. That's what we want to achieve. Obviously, it needs to make sense from an economic standpoint in the more rural regions, but quite frankly, getting this one commission together will bring us a long way to that end, and that's something that we're trying to do. We did pull together an airport study to look at regionalizing both the north and the south airports. There was some activity last council meeting where the host municipalities asked regional council to waive the environmental survey that was asked for by council. Council denied that, so we're back to asking for the host municipalities to produce the environmental survey before the region takes on that responsibility or considers taking on that responsibility. We're working on the Port Robinson Ferry, trying to get that service maintained. We had a contract with the St. Lawrence Seaway, but that contract was only for a certain number of years, 17 or 20 years, I can't quite remember, but it expires shortly, and we're working to try and maintain that service for Port Robinson and a lot of cyclists that do use that service. In terms of affordability for residents, you'll note that we've seen a decrease in our waste management. We've seen a 1.2% reduction from 2016, resulting in $400,000 worth of savings for our residents. In terms of property tax, this is something that I'm really proud of. You can see the rates of inflation for 2015, 16, and 17, and you can see our tax increases is 1.92, 0 in 2016, and 1% plus an additional 1% for infrastructure in 2017. So an average of under 1% on your regional tax levy per year, something I'm really proud of, and I know that Mayor Easton is as well. In terms of effective government, we want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, shall we say. The three things I'll talk about: the value for money audits, the alternative service delivery, and also our Standard & Poor's review, our credit rating. So in the value for money audits, we did 3 audits in 2015, 2 in 2016. We can count on doing more. What this is just looking at the what we've done and the way we've done it, our processes and procedures, and making sure that we've got the most for our dollars that we can. And in most cases, we've found opportunities to make improvements, and with that, moving forward, should save us money in our future projects. Alternative service delivery, or ASD, is simply different ways of looking at providing service that we provide today. We're looking at a number of different ways of delivering service for affordable housing, long-term care, and other projects to see if there's other ways that we can work together with private industry, public-private partnerships, or are there opportunities for us to benefit further. On the Standard & Poor's review, they've reaffirmed our AA stable credit rating, which is fabulous for us. It's fabulous because it means that we've had some change in our management structure, but this means that they still have confidence in us and our debt level, in our staff to be able to deliver on services, and also our infrastructure. So this is wonderful news for us in Niagara. It does affect our interest rate that we pay. So AA stable is wonderful. Investing in communities, I won't go over all of it. You'll see in the operating budget, there's a number of different initiatives that we've undertaken. $900,000 for new 24/7 shift of paramedics, $765,000 dedicated to the intermunicipal transit we talked about, and trying to get one transit system, specialized transit, the wastewater treatment plants in Niagara Lake, and also our capital budget. Some initiatives that we've undertaken in our capital budget, the $40 million for GO Rail service. When we worked with the province and the feds on our business case, we offered a third of the cost, along with the province and the federal government putting a third in. Our third is payable up front, and we've already started to use some of that in some of the early initiatives. You'll see some of that work starting to take place in St. Catharines and Niagara Falls on the There's a number of different initiatives there, including $12 million for our redevelopment of our long-term care facilities, $14 million for new infrastructure, new water infrastructure to support the population growth in Grimsby, and I'm not sure if that will have a spillover effect into Lincoln or not. Key projects in 2017. Great news. We had a wonderful day last Wednesday for the Niagara 2021 Games bid. We had the bid evaluation team in Niagara, and I can tell you, if we don't get the Summer Games in Niagara, it wasn't because we left anything on the table. I'm telling you, everybody was out. Everybody was thrilled to participate. Regional Council has approved $10.5 million as their support for the Canada Games. We can look forward to $200 million in economic stimulation out of getting the games, and we'll hear by the end of the month, by the end of March, we'll hear whether we're successful or not. This is a competition. Let's not get it wrong. We're competing against Ottawa, Sudbury, Kitchener-Waterloo, but quite frankly, I think they were really impressed with what we had to say and what we showed them, so that's great. Transportation, we talked about intermunicipal transit. We talked about the GO stations. We talked about trying to advance those schedules. We're working hard on that. Housing and homelessness. If we look at our housing wait list, we know that there's between 5,000 and 6,000 people waiting for housing in Niagara. We know that we have not done a good job on building new stock in housing. And in saying that, this year, I threw out a number of 1,000 houses in a 4-year term. So if we did build 1,000 new houses in a 4-year term, how long would it take us to eliminate our wait list in Niagara? The answer, of course, is 24 years, much too long. So building 1,000 houses may not be realistic, may not be possible, but quite frankly, it's a great stretch target. And we know that there are several new housing projects on the horizon. We're working with Bethlehem Housing in downtown St. Catharines and in the north end of St. Catharines. In Welland, there's another development that's under consideration. So we are trying to do something about that. And this is great news that we're finally making some progress on. Retention of our under 35 demographic, something that's really interesting, and I know that Brock has done some work on this recently as well, trying to keep our U35 in Niagara and what it takes to do that. Obviously, they need affordable housing, they need jobs, and they need high-speed internet. They need infrastructure. You know, the basics is what's required. I think we're working on just about everything that they need to want to stay and to be able to stay in Niagara. The one thing that we're working on more vigorously is our internships with business and getting business more involved with what our young people ought to look like. What we heard from the U35 demographic was there's no jobs. What we heard from the business was that there are no people qualified for the jobs I have. I can't find people. So obviously a mismatch in skills and jobs available, and something that we're trying to get better at. We're working on regional procurement in a lot of different respects. It comes out of our ASDs and our other value for money audits, and with that we'll hopefully make some improvements to our processes. So that, Madam Chair, is the end of my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Caslin. Questions, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Chair Caslin, for the presentation. Just very quickly, I mean, we all know that, you know, the east end of the municipality, I guess typically Fort Erie and Welland have struggled over the years. I just wondering, obviously, hopefully, you know, the answer is yes, but, you know, as the chair, have you seen the move of General Electric to Welland as kind of a catalyst, as a snowball effect for other businesses typically in the U.S. looking at the Niagara Peninsula for relocation?
Yeah, it definitely is, yes. And let's keep this a secret between you and I, but you know, we're trying to poach all the suppliers as well. So, you know, a plant like that doesn't just operate in autonomy. It has a lot of suppliers that supply goods and services to the main plant, and we're busily trying to poach all those as well. So bring all those, and you know, GE is very supportive and wanting to have their suppliers close to where their factory is going to be built. So thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Through you, thank you very much for coming in. Certainly, I'm pleased to hear about the three transit commissions actually starting to have a conversation. That's a long time coming, and I think it's a positive step towards where we need to go. I was also really impressed by the survey that was done by the youth folks out in the summer, coming around to all the businesses and sort of getting an inventory of the businesses. I think it's a very smart way to figure out what we need to do to keep our under 35s with a viable job market. So hopefully they'll do some deeper dives into more information from those businesses to further our kind of understanding of what needs to go on. So thank you.
Excellent. And thank you through you, Madam Chair, Mayor. It's never been done before. We really didn't. I mean, there's a lot of statistics out there, but that level of statistics was just never available. So, yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Chair Caslin, I'd like to ask you a question about the airport initiative, because since the vote was taken, and of course it was not, wasn't a project that we considered would have really any direct positive impact for us. Would you elaborate on what's happened since that decision was made, and where you think it's going?
So the decision on Thursday night was about an environmental survey. So there were some questions about the type of whether there was contamination on the either of the sites or both of the sites, and obviously it's a costly endeavor to do the survey, and something that the municipalities did not want to have to fund. But council has decided that no, it's necessary. So with that said, essentially that will delay a process of consideration for the time enough for them to do those surveys if they choose to do them. They may in fact not choose to do them and stand down and decide that status quo is a reasonable alternative for them to consider. In other words, St. Catharines and Niagara Falls and Niagara Lake running the North Airport and others running the South Airport. I'm not quite sure. It needs to be a push from the municipalities, not a pull from the region. I don't think that's ever going to work. That said, I can tell you that there was another real win for us in Niagara, and small as it is, and we do now have a flight service from Niagara to Toronto to Toronto Island Airport through Fly GTA is the company's name, and it's a service that, small as it is of value to some who need it. You can get to Toronto now out of the Niagara District Airport for a reasonable cost and a 14-minute flight. And it's not as if you have to be at the airport any earlier than you would a taxi cab. You need to be there about 10 minutes before the flight takes off. So that said, the reason I bring that up is because picture a situation where you had to be in downtown Toronto on Monday morning, let's say for 8 or 9 o'clock for a meeting. It's faster for you, much faster for you to drive to Niagara on the Lake, get on that plane, and so 30-minute drive to Niagara on the Lake, get on the plane for 14 minutes. You're guaranteed to be in Toronto at 15 minutes later and catch a cab to where you need to be downtown. As an alternative to having to drive from Niagara through all the traffic and trying to get downtown Toronto. I mean, it's definitely not something that everybody would be using, but definitely an alternative that we've never had before.
So, Chair Caslin, I just want, for the benefit of our audience, for them to understand that if the three municipalities don't continue on with the environmental assessment, that the region would not be assuming responsibility for the Niagara District Airport or the two smaller local airports. Is that correct? Is that what they should understand?
That's correct. It was a condition of assignment. So there was 4 conditions. One of them was, in fact, the environmental assessment. Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and Niagara Lake for the north asked if they would forego the environmental assessment, and council decided on Thursday night they would not. So it is a condition.
That's very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I think your report was very complete, and I think having the activities of Regional Council encapsulated as you've done tonight is really beneficial for people to be able to sit and watch one program or be part of one meeting and be able to hear all of these things that are going on. So on behalf of Council, I thank you very much.
Well, I thank you very much. And if I could just take a moment to suggest to your council that Mayor Easton is a very significant part of Regional Council and somebody I count on for very sage advice many, many times. And I can tell you that sometimes there's a lot of distractions in council chambers at the regional level. And I can always count on Mayor Easton to come forward with something that's reasonable, that's fair, and I consider to be sage advice. During my time as regional chair, I've been in Lincoln at least on a monthly basis. This is my first time in actual chambers, but I do take the time to visit. My first visit to Lincoln was in the front of a coffee shop on Main Street in downtown. And the mayor made me sit in the front window so I could witness all the trucks going by the downtown and recognize at that moment that there was it was just not acceptable to have that kind of traffic through a downtown and expect to have the downtown be vibrant and successful. So at that point, immediately we reinitiated the EA for the Bartlett Road escarpment crossing. And I can tell you we're moving forward quickly, as quick as we can, on trying to connect that. It is, I'm sure you all know Bartlett Road, 4-lane road, direct connection to the highway. And if a truck was to get in trouble, lose its brakes or whatever, would have a lot less risk than if it lost its brakes in downtown Lincoln or downtown anywhere else. So I think, thank you very much for your advice, your counsel, and to being part of my council.
Thank you very much. If we could just take a short break, Carrie's going to take a quick photograph for Chair Kaslin's files, and then we'll continue on. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Around the outside.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
He's coming here. He's coming here. You don't want us. He's coming here.
Oh, he's coming. Oh, yeah. I'm going to come here. Yeah. Oops. I'd like to get rid of this chair.
We'll just stand in front of it. How about that?
Perfect. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Go this way.
Sure. All right, councilors, thank you very much for your attention and for your good questions. Item number 12, thank you very much, Chair. Correspondence, and we have no correspondence. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk? Yes. However, we do have reports, and we'll begin with Finance and Administration Committee, and Councillor Njima will present on behalf of Councillor Pachariva. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Njima and seconded by Councillor McMillan that the minutes of the Finance and Administration Committee meeting of February 27, 2017, including the confidential addendum thereto, be adopted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm doing the minutes tonight for Councillor Pachariva, who's away, taking care of his son who was in an accident. Thank goodness he's all right. First item in the agenda, we went through some recent good changes to our road allowance closure and sale procedure. We're aligning it more with our Planning Act procedure, which consists of a pre-consultation, a public meeting, and a recommendation report. So our CAO went through that for us, and we're happy to hear that procedure in place because it makes sense. Then we had 2 of the road allowance closure and sale applications that have gone through the process, come to their final step of the process. One was the road allowance up by Cave Springs Road, and the other one, actually I have a clarification question on that. I was speaking to the clerk earlier on today asking, I'll repeat the question. I wasn't clear as to whether the final product, whether there's going to be, existing now are 2 lots separated by a road allowance. And in the report that day, the report mentioned that the road allowance was going to merge to the east, and then there was going to be a subsequent consent to take off the house. So what I wasn't clear on was whether we were going to end up with 3 lots or 2 lots. And can I just get clarification or confirmation that the applicant is going to end up with 2 lots after this road allowance is
Actually,
merged?
Mr. Clerk, if you don't mind, Councillor, if you would finish your report, reserve that for Councillor inquiries, and then we'll get an answer to the question.
Thank you, will do.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda was the next road allowance closure and sale application. It's a given road in the name of Chris Shelton over by Mountain View Road. Both of these road allowance closure and sale applications underwent the public process, the legal review, an extensive consideration with our road allowance closure and sale policy, and property value assessment. Staff will negotiate a final sale price taking into consideration the appraised value and the market value, and the results of that negotiation will come back to council. Next on the agenda, we had a discussion about Prokich Park. The plan for Prokich Park up in Ward 2 was that it be done in 2 or 3 phases, I think 2 phases. And so the discussion that night was that now that Vista Ridge is going to be going ahead with their development up there, and that they've dedicated, I think it's approximately 3 acres of parkland dedication, that we take advantage of economies of scale and do the park development all at once. The money is coming from reserves. I think that the park will end up being just under 9 acres. The design is yet to be finalized. There's a concept plan from 2010 that we viewed that night. And the design again is yet to be finalized. It will go through a public process. This is great news for Prokich Park, for the residents all around that area, and really for all of Lincoln. Next on the agenda, we had a report talking about 2018 budget schedule. We're going to be having an open house at the end of May, starting the budget earlier, getting some public engagement, talking about different ways that we can get the public actively involved in our budget process and the projects that we undertake through the year. And the last report was on alternative voting technologies. We're going to continue, committee voted to continue with our optical scan voting tabulators through Dominion voting systems that we've used for at least for 3 elections, I believe. The clerk might correct me on that. And committee considered internet voting and decided to ask for the financial costs if we decide to go ahead with implementing internet voting, and that'll come back to I think the next committee, because I think that there's a bit of a push to get this done before in consideration of the 2018 elections. Then we went into closed session to address a matter pertaining to an encroachment and also an update regarding current litigation matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any questions to the motion? Councillor Foster.
No, not to the motion, but to the report.
Or to the report, pardon me.
So through you, first of all, I'd like to go back to the question that Councillor Rangima was trying to sort of say as she was going through reading the minutes. So can we just get a clarification of what this is going to look like, that particular application when it's all said and done?
You're asking the CAO or the clerk?
Whichever one chooses to answer, so.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor. One of the conditions outlined in the proposed closure and conveyance is that the road allowance be merged in title with the applicant's land located immediately to the east of the unopened road allowance so as to ensure that no new lot is created by the closure and conveyance. I guess to emphasize, he currently has 2 lots separated by a road, and with the closure and conveyance, that if that road is eventually closed and conveyed by bylaw, it will merge in title with one of the lots so that he has 2 now, he will have 2 in the future. That's strictly dealing with the road allowance closure and sale. We are not going to get into the whole consent process which may follow. That's a separate process which we understand the applicant has indicated he's going to be pursuing in the future that will result in some mergers and boundary adjustments and that sort of thing, but we're not going there. We're dealing strictly with the closure and conveyance.
Councillor Foster?
Thank you. So second question from the minutes, and concerning Prokich Park. We go through quite a significant budget process every year to make decisions on projects we're going to do and how we're moving forward. So how does Prokich Park change now within that budget and budget package, I guess, if you want to put it that way? And the reason is that it's not good enough to just be stating that we're going to be pulling monies from reserves to go and do things. There's a few realities on the thing, and we do set priorities as to what we're doing with it. So I'm just curious what the plans are around it, and realistically, I would assume that Prokich will be built next year, but what's kind of the time frame that staff are looking at?
Okay, very good. Mr. Kirkopoulos, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll begin answering that question. If there's any other more detailed financial questions, then Angela can address those. So I think to start backwards, the timing on that project, we're in the process of finalizing the procurement documents right now to issue that RFP to finalize design and likely have a shovel in the ground at some point Q2 by Q3, depending on public consultation and the other pieces of the project. Just to refresh Council's mind on this particular project, it was a 3-phase project initially. Phase 1 was to develop approximately 2.5 hectares of land currently that we own. This was the phase that was included and approved in the capital budget. Phase 2 was the acquisition, the purchase of property as a result of Vista Ridge and that Vista Ridge development going forward. That is no longer required from the perspective of needing to acquire that at a cost. As a result of that development and the densities on that particular site, we are receiving that parcel of property at no charge, and that is approximately a 1.28 hectare piece of property, so a little under 3 acres. The final phase was to construct the second piece of it. I think as we spoke of at both Finance and SRC last week, if you look at the construction of that site and the way it is to be phased, the initial works were all in phase 1, but it wasn't budgeted appropriately from a phased perspective and from a budgeting perspective. And so what we're asking and what we received approval to do was to look at the funds that had been set aside initially in 16, 17, and 18 to do all 3 phases and to just accelerate the portion of it that was what we're calling phase 3 as a result of not requiring monies for phase 2. So I think, sorry, one more comment. There is no levy or debenture or long-term financing impact as a result of the scope of funding. I think what we're finding is that when we look at what is a fairly tight budget for that particular park, whether that be in phase 1, 2, or 3, there is an economies of scale by going forward in this way and trying to maximize the budget and not be before council in a phased way asking for additional dollars.
Councillor Foster.
So we're issuing the RFP shortly. My assumption is that there's going to be public processes that go in with this park as well. I think your timeline is kind of out to lunch. I can't imagine a shovel being in the ground with this in Q2. And because we're going to have to go through the public processes, there will have to be discussion at SRC, and there will have to be something that's going on with it. So the earliest would be this fall, based on what it is that we're typically dealing with these types of things. So anyway, so in other words, we're looking at doing the complete package in one shot, and so there's some work has to be done ahead of time, obviously with the work that's going to have to go on the design end of things. So,
Do you have anything further to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my apologies in referencing Q2, likely late summer. I think before we've got a shovel in the ground is initially where I was, hoping to land with that, Councillor. Absolutely, I think public consultation is a piece of it. I'd suggest it's a mix between public consultation and public validation of a design already in place. So I think it's a matter of prioritizing that design, looking what's in that visioning document that was done in 2010. I think revalidating some of the conversations we had and having conversations with the Prokich family. But yeah, absolutely, you'll be hearing about this at SRC committee a number of times, before we fully move forward and the park's developed.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Brunet.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just to the part of the motion in regards to the internet voting costs, I'm just wanting to ensure that staff is looking at the grand scope of the internet voting costs, not just physical cost of software, but technical support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just as long as that's clear, there's some clarity there, because it's never always just one bill. There's always these extra little pieces that come in with that are very, very important and tend to drive the cost up. So I just want to be certain about that before we bite off the...
Mr. Clerk, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, total cost, yes, that will be part of the next report coming back to you. Total cost.
Very good. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I don't want to get into a big, full, bore conversation about Prokich Park, but, I do have to agree with Councillor Foster on one item, and I'm certainly not going to question the CAA on shovel in the ground Q2, Q3, Q4. That's certainly something I'm sure he will orchestrate appropriately. But I do have to agree, and there's no one that wants to see this park built in that quadrant more than Councillor Patrick and myself. We got phone calls after phone calls and emails after emails from people that have been living up there for 12 years and been waiting for a park. However, I keep hearing we're getting a parks master plan. So I think the parks master plan needs to be part of this as we move forward. That's only a comment that I want to make sure is articulated. But also, I think it's important that if we're looking at a park plan that was designed potentially in 2010, I stand to be corrected. That's what I keep hearing. There are people that moved into that subdivision, whether it be Stadelbuyer, who will walk up to use the park, whether it's the new Vista Ridge or whether it's the existing around St. Mark's School, that will use that park, that potentially moved in there when their kids were 5 or 6 years old. And now their kids are, much, much older, 16, 17. Their needs are potentially quite different than they were when they moved in there. So there's no one that wants to see this park built faster, but I think it's vital because we're having a whole new subdivision move in there, Vista Ridge. We're acquiring this land, which is terrific, which could expedite the process. But what's really important to me is that when we build the park, that the people that are going to use it are happy with the finished product and something that we can be happy about. So again, I just want to reiterate Parks Master Plan and the fact that, we are working from a design that is dated. So I fully endorse the moving along of this, but I want to make sure that we're making educated, smart decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. CAO, do you have anything further? All right. Thank you very much, councillors. All right. Any other questions to the report? I've read the motion. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. All right. Councillor Njima. You are on the docket again. For the Sport, Recreation and Culture Committee, I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that the minutes of the Sport, Recreation and Culture Committee meeting of March the 1st, 2017 be adopted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At our SRC committee meeting, we received the minutes of the Canada 150 committee. Again, saw the good work being done there. We received the minutes of the Lincoln Public Library Board, had some discussion about the memorandum of understanding regarding the town IT support for the library and communications between the library board and council. More to come there. Then we received from the CAO an update regarding things that are happening in our SRC department. First on the list, we talked about the new museum. He updated us and that we are in the process of the Stage 4 archaeological study. It's scheduled to commence this spring. That we'll be hearing more about the build project at the Economic Development Committee coming up. There are some renovations being undertaken at the former Fleming Library, which is where a lot of the collection is being housed at the moment in the interim, and will be until the final build is done of the new museum. There's preventative measures being taken to protect the building from pest and rodent damage. And next we had an update on Prokich Park. Much of what we heard discussed here, the importance of public engagement in the design of the park. We talked about the phasing of the we talked about the plan to do the park all at once and rather than phasing it in order to maximize construction dollars and benefit from the new development plans in the immediate area. He also updated us on the cultural plan. We're going to be receiving a draft culture plan at our April Sports, Recreation and Culture Committee. We talked about the importance of a cultural plan on attracting visitors to our local wineries and agritourism. We talked about the Heritage Incentive Program, how we would like to implement some sort of funds for property owners that are going to be undertaking the process of designating their property, that we'd like to offer some sort of incentive. I think we went away from the meeting saying we'll talk a little further whether we're going to implement that through our CIPs or how we can actually get that done, CIPs being community improvement plans. And we talked about the new vendor at the Fleming Center. Now that we have our French fries and we have hot dogs at the Fleming Center, very exciting. And we had an extensive discussion about the department reorganization in sports, recreation, and culture. We have some positions that need to be filled, and that's going to be happening very soon. And that wrapped it up.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Thompson, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you actually to the chair, if she could enlighten me on one of the items that's in the minutes in regards to the discussion of the implementation of a MOU for the town in regards to the IT support for the library. Mm-hmm. I wasn't at the meeting, and so I was just kind of curious as to how that was brought forward, and then I have a sort of subsequent question after that.
Okay, Councillor, are you prepared to handle that?
Maybe our CAO, because I know our CAO has been in discussions with both the library board, the CAO, the chair, and himself. So.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can speak to it at a high level, Councillor. I haven't been involved in the day-to-day operations of the MOU. That is actually with our chief librarian, Ms. Nicholson, and our head of IT services, John Brown. the update that I provided at that particular time was that an MOU, or the components of an MOU, are being worked on and should be finalized very shortly. And I think this MOU will clarify for council, the IT provisions that are being provided from a hard infrastructure standpoint versus, the support piece of it. And I know there were a lot of questions at SRC, and I think a lot of that will be captured in the review that I've been directed to undertake, both from an operational standpoint as well as an efficiency standpoint.
Does that help you, Councillor Thompson?
That's very good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also noticed that there was a request made by the committee to have the CEO of the library and the chair provide more frequent updates to the committee. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we need to set out in a motion format to have a schedule of reports, because we've asked in the past a number of times for reports, and I would like to see them come forward and report to us on what's going on a timely basis.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to address that particular question, there was a motion passed actually by the library board itself to support that ask from the town in terms of enhanced communication. I can tell you, following SRC and again a very robust conversation that was had at that meeting, I did reach out to Chair Krault, Vice Chair Donna Burton, as well as Jill. They are working on a report for the committee meeting in April. Where they can come. It's a 45-minute presentation, and I think it'll go into a lot of detail in terms of what they're doing, some recent accreditation processes that they've been through, as well as addressing some of the budget questions.
Councillor Thompson? All right, very good. Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question, maybe just a clarification and maybe a little bit of background on the discussion that took place. I wasn't able to be at this meeting, but if I'm reading this properly, there was discussion with regards, and I certainly recognize that the CAO is working very hard for complete reorganization and with two focus areas in that department, infrastructure operations and planning programming. But am I reading this correctly, that we're looking at changing the department name of the whole department back to community services from sport, recreation, and culture? Is that the intention here?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct, Councillor.
Anything further, Councillor? Do you want a few seconds?
Well, again, I know we're just going through the minutes here, but again, I'm raising another Spockian eyebrow because, we had a name in that department previous. We went to sport, recreation, and culture. I think many of us have always felt that the culture component was something that was missing in that department, and we want to focus, especially if we're building a new museum in Jordan. So I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting, I wasn't privy to the discussion, but going back to community services, I have a concern again that culture will take a back seat. So maybe this isn't the place to raise it, but I just wanted to ask the question because I wasn't at the SRC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I'm going to turn to Councillor Foster because I think I know he has some history on this, and then if there's anything further for Mr. Kirkopoulos, we'll turn in that direction. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion we had that evening in this particular area. And so the thinking process that's going on, it really truly is community services that is within the town structure itself. However, the thinking process is we leave it sports, recreation, and culture as the committee. Not unlike infrastructure committee has public works, which is Dave doing stuff, plus there's other components that mix into it. So the whole concept of it is that we're going to maintain that thinking process of the triumvirate, if you want to put it that way. But the group itself really truly is community services within the context of the municipality. So I think that's where the split is going on. At least that was the discussion that we had. So.
Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Madam Chair, let me try to expand even further, and I'll start by saying I reassure you, culture is not taking a back seat. If you look at the organizational structure, there's actually an associate director position that it was created that talks about culture, that talks about recreational programming, and that talks about museum services. I did significant consultation with staff as it related to this particular reorg, and there were a number of models that I think we discussed both in camera throughout the budget process as well as more publicly. You'll see that 2 focus areas have been established in the organizational structure, one that is much more focused on the hard infrastructure and operations. And when I refer to those hard infrastructure kind of operational things, I look at our parks, I look at cemeteries, which is taking on a more detailed and a newer focus, a forestry program, not just the replacement of the Emerald Ash Borer program, but a forestry program that council saw important, as well as the relationship building, the stakeholder development, in addition to arena operations and our maintenance and operations of all of our facilities. The other side, which really is around recreational programming, the museum culture, and I think a lot of these strategic services, things that include master planning and our green space development, things that include those special projects and the project management work, our cultural services and the expanded offerings, both with the museum being expanded, community development, really that customer service element that is captured both within the Future Focus corporate plan as well as our work plan that really didn't have a focus in any of the departments. And again, developing new partnerships, developing new opportunities through advertising and so forth. So the structure that was put in place is really intended to bring focus to the priority areas. You'll see that we've created an associate director. We've expanded the manager of museum to include cultural services. So there's some title changes that have gone along with this particular reorganization in an effort to bring, I think, some of the focus that is required in this. This has been a department that has gone through an evolution, a little bit of a change, and I think, as Councillor Foster suggested, the committee can stay as an SRC committee in terms of that more public-facing focus. But I think when you talk to staff and you look at the vastness of operations that are being offered here that weren't captured under sport, recreation, and culture. And I think oftentimes staff want to see themselves both in the name of the department and community services was something that continuously kept being revisited. So, from the standpoint of senior management team, we felt that this was a necessary and important, change in order to foster some of that internal culture within the department that was also much needed, Councillor.
Councillor Foster, you're satisfied? Councillor Brunet, you're satisfied?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. In no way, shape, or form was I trying to, create a dialogue for pros and cons. I just wanted to make sure, again, my bad, I wasn't at the meeting. It sounds like this has been vetted very appropriately, and the CAO has clearly articulated the reasons, so I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
We're not encouraging blind acceptance, Councillor. I'm pleased to have the discussion. I think we should all be pleased to have the discussion and to truly understand where we're moving from a policy perspective. All right, no more questions. Then I will call the motion. All those in favor? None opposed. The motion is carried. Item number 14 is confirmation of compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. We have nothing to entertain this evening. And we have no bylaws. And we come to councillor inquiries. Councillor Ranjima, is your inquiry still alive?
Yeah, I'm not completely clear on that still, I don't think. My understanding was that those, again, earlier on the road allowance closure and sale, my understanding was that the parcel to the east and the west were supposed to be merged together. And okay,
Clerk.
I think I understand it now. I think it just hit me. So, because when we
Sorry, do we happen to have a, well, the problem here is that you have a question, and the clerk either can give you a clean answer or he can't.
Oh, I think you can, because we spoke on the phone earlier on about it today.
All right.
Yeah, so
And if not, then what other options are open to the counselor?
yeah.
The clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can offer to meet with the counselor and pull out some maps and pull out the old original reports that were first presented back in September, which originally laid out this scenario. And again, I guess to try and emphasize that what we're trying to do is deal with two separate processes separately. We're dealing with the closure and conveyance application, which is the only thing before us at the moment, which, again, in keeping with the original consideration back in September and carrying that forward through to its final conclusion, 2 lots before, basically 2 lots after. The second component of the applicant's overall development thinking will be a matter that will be dealt with in the future by the Committee of Adjustment, a subsequent application through the Planning Department under the Planning Act, and that's where you get into merging and boundary adjustments and that sort of thing. I don't know if that helps or not.
It does help. It's just when I pictured this application, I thought that those two parcels were going to merge together and create a larger viable farm parcel. So now that I find out that they're going to be 2 separate parcels, maybe that's just the way it is, but that wasn't my understanding of it. I thought that whole piece was going to be one, and then that other piece was going to be severed off.
Mr. Clerk, can you clarify how much land went to the farm parcel?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, I think the counselor actually hit it on the head when she talked about the consent portion, which we're not dealing with yet. That's the next phase. Currently, the small parcel of land located to the east is approximately 3 and a bit acres in size, and part of in the main holdings to the west of the road allowance are a little over 5 acres in size. The road allowance itself is approximately 3/4 of an acre in size, and the road allowance closure and sale is intended to facilitate the future merging and boundary adjustments, which will create one large agricultural parcel, and it will help dispose of a surplus residential unit that is surplus to the needs of the farming operation. Again, 2 lots in the future, 2 lots now. But again, the emphasis is that is an application that has not yet been made to the town, that we are not attempting to prejudge or make any sort of decision on at this stage. We're dealing solely with the application to close and convey the road allowance to the property owner.
All right, Mr. Kirkopoulos, I know that you have something that you can add here. However, I don't want to create any further debate on this.
To you, Madam Mayor, I hope not to create debate and provide clarification. There is a section in the report that is very clear that says staff undertake and identify the following steps. Number 5 there, and I won't read all 6, but number 5 says that a condition of the conveyance be that the road allowance be merged in title with the applicant's lands located immediately to the east of the unopened road allowance so as to ensure that no new lot is created. So if that provides the clarity for the councillor in terms of the creation of no new lot, then it is captured within the report on number 5 of the following steps to be undertaken by staff.
All right, and that's where we started, and that's the end of the discussion.
Yes.
It may not be the end of your discussion with the clerk or Mr. Kirkopoulos, but we're finished with it for here because we're way beyond the purpose
Inquiries.
of councillor inquiries.
Okay, thank you.
Who else do I have? I have Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Easton. And just to reaffirm everybody's fears, we are obviously going to see that at planning as it's going along as well. So there's lots of discussion yet going to go on. There's 2 things, and I'm not sure if this really fits as inquiry, but a request from Councillor Timmers and myself. First of all, I've been on the 20 Valley Tourism since the beginning of this term of council, and by the way, it's one of those committees that I had always wanted to sit on, and it's been quite an exciting 2 years as they've been going through changes and moving down the road with a strategic plan within it. But the problem is that they've gone to a meeting schedule that it makes it very difficult for me with a daytime, full-time, running all over the countryside IT job to make. So, and at the same time, Councillor Timmers, in discussion with myself as well, we thought there's a lot going on at the library board over the next little while that probably would be good to have some of the experience that I've had within that as well to help within some of the discussions going on. So anyway, we're requesting of council the opportunity to exchange the particular boards that we're on. I would be sitting on the library board, and Councillor Timmers would be sitting on 20 Valley Tourism. So Councillor Timmers, do you want to add anything to that?
That's my question, Councillor.
Sorry.
That's my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Madam Mayor, would you mind asking Councillor Timmers?
Please
Thank
go
you, Mary
ahead,
Easton.
Councillor.
I've enjoyed my last 2 years on the library board, but I was approached by Councillor Foster, and it seems a really good fit for both of us. I would really like to work on the TVTA, and I look forward to that. And I think it'll work out for both of us, and we're both agreeable. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Sounds like a good plan going forward. And I've just checked with the clerk to make sure that this motion is appropriate under councillor inquiries. I do have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan and seconded by Councillor Rajima. Whereas council has considered its appointments to various agencies, boards, and committees, and whereas council considers it expedient to amend its appointments to 2 such boards, now therefore be it resolved that, 1, that Councillor R. Foster be appointed to replace Councillor L. Timmers on the Town of Lincoln Public Library Board. Number 2, that Councillor L. Timmers be appointed to replace Councillor R. Foster on the 20 Valley Tourism Association. Are there any questions to the motion? No questions. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors.
And I have one other inquiry through to the CAO. So at our SRC meeting the other evening, there was a lot of discussion or bits and pieces about GO Transit. And I found the discussion this evening fascinating with Mayor Castellan and some of the funding that the region has to do to help aid as we're going forward with things. So it's been very clear in the discussions that we really want the province to get moving with building a proper bus terminal out where we're now making use of this. So a question to the CAO is I know that they're coming along to do it, but is this a situation where we need to be also putting some monies towards this, because it really truly is important for us within our community, and the sooner we get this done, the better?
Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to that question, I've posed that exact question to both MTO and Metrolinx, and at this point in time, they said that they're going to get back to me on that particular item. I had said pending council approval, if there are monies that we would need to look at to put in a temporary structure, to put in part of that structure, that we would be open to those discussions. So I'd say what we need to do is continue the advocacy with GO and the folks at Metrolinx to determine where they're at. They do have a detailed design that they look at doing at these particular locations. They need to budget for it as well and put it within their budget. But I have asked them, and we can bring an update back to the next committee meeting where appropriate on that particular item, and hopefully I can get an answer from them prior to that.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you very much. That's really good. And the other thing, the connectivity between King Street, Ontario Street, and I'm thinking other things too, but Ontario Street and the service road over to the particular area, there have been some discussions about walkways, etc. So I'm assuming that for the 2018 budget process, we might be looking at some improvements in those areas as well. So anyway, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct, Councillor.
All right, thank you. Any other inquiries? Nothing more? All right, we'll move on to item number 17, which is a notice of motion. And I'm asking now if there's any notice of motion. Anyone? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a notice of motion that I would like to present this evening, and I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Councillor Brunet to take over the meeting at this point, and we'll carry on some further discussion. And Councillor Brunet, if you wish, if you will.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So would you like to speak to this notice of motion?
I would, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, you know that this last summer was particularly devastating for the farmers in our region. And on a number of occasions, I attended meetings with members of our staff in Niagara-on-the-Lake, having a look at their system, which is essentially open ditches. It is quite a highly regulated system. They have special staff in Niagara-on-the-Lake, in the municipality, that look after these ditches to make sure that they're patent, and also to ensure that water is free flowing. However, in our region, the water this summer was coming really from Lake Ontario. That's what the Ministry of the Environment approved as the access points. I think it's fair to say that most of our streams, the creeks, were really challenged, and certainly the fish habitats were challenged because of the amount of water that was being taken out of them. So it was a very critical period, certainly with tender fruit. Literally, the peaches were cooking on the trees, and in the vineyards, the early rootstock really suffers when it doesn't have water, and it really holds it back in terms of production. So there has been, for a number of years, an irrigation committee, but there has never been a full-fledged irrigation strategy. And so as a result of at least two farmers coming forward with ideas about pilot projects that could be implemented, it was determined through the Regional Agricultural Policy Committee that there should be a formalized irrigation strategy. And so that committee has been formed now, and Lord Mayor Dart, Mayor Sendzik, and myself sit on it. And also there are many representatives from the sector, the ag sectors, and we have both staff and community members from Niagara-on-the-Lake, because they are very, very knowledgeable. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done with the mapping as well. So we met last week, and the reason I'm bringing this forward is because the Ag Policy Committee meets on Friday. The goal is to engage the regional council in an activity where they would support recommendations that will come out of the strategy. But first, we require a staff member to actually do the work. It's very specialized work. We have members from OMAFRA and both federations of agriculture that sit on that committee. There are some specialists in this area that sit on the committee as well. We need a report that we can bring forward so that we can begin that process of looking at pilot projects. So I had this circulated so that you would be able to have a look at it. I would appreciate it if you would agree. We require a 2/3 vote for you to agree for the procedural rules to be waived. And I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address this motion.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. So I will read the motion, but before I do, is there any discussion by any members of Councillor? Councillor Foster?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Brunet. So just a quick question on this. I know there's maybe reasonable reasons to try and have this in place quick, but I'm just wondering, would it, is there harm in sort of following the normal notice of motion process and allowing us all to digest this a little bit further before it's put in place? I don't really have any objections to it, but it just seems a little unusual or outside of the norm of our procedures to sort of deal with it this way. So.
It's my understanding that it is time sensitive, but I'll ask Mayor Easton to maybe make a comment on that.
It's a fair question, Mr. Chairman. It certainly isn't life-altering, but I think it's fair to say that the whole irrigation subject seems to go with a very dramatic ebb and flow. It's very popular when there's no water. There's no interest when there is water. And so we always, we really find ourselves behind the 8 ball. And so that would be the only urgency. I couldn't describe it in any other way. And so I'm relying on the knowledge that most people, not all councillors, would have about the dilemma that agriculture faces in regard to this. The solutions aren't going to be easy. And so I don't want to create urgency where it doesn't exist, but it needs to move along, and it needs to move along right away. We have to get this letter out to all other municipalities. That in itself takes quite a long time. So I would request your indulgence.
Thank you for that. I have Councillor Rinjema.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay, Wayne. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brunet. I understand that there's a process that we usually follow with notice of motions, but I applaud the forward thinking of this because we know what everybody suffered last summer. It was brutal, and if it happens again, and it's going to happen again, I'm sure at some point, that I'm really happy to see that there's going to be work moving in that direction to. So I'm in favor of approving this as a motion tonight.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't have any problem with taking a vote on this tonight. The question I have, though, is, and Mayor Easton, you mentioned it, this being sent to all other municipalities. Is that a necessary part of the motion? Should that be included? I've noted that in other business that has come from other councils to us, and part of the written motion is that it be circulated to all other councils. Is it enough to say that's going to happen, or should it be in writing?
Mr. Chairman, through you, I believe it should be in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, I have Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brunet. I'm just really pleased to see us taking a leadership role in getting this ball rolling. We are the center of excellence for agriculture in the region, and therefore it's imperative that we show that leadership. And I'm more than pleased to move this process along as quickly as we can.
First? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I have Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet. I definitely support this motion. We do need a region-wide strategic plan for agricultural irrigation. Last summer was a real struggle for our local farmers. As a Center for Excellence of Agriculture, we definitely need to take the leadership on this and move it as quickly as possible. So I'm supporting this motion.
Moved it. Okay, thank you, councillors, for your input. So I have a motion, first of all, moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Timmers, that the provisions of the procedure bylaw be waived to permit consideration of the motion at this meeting. Your favor on that motion? That is passed.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion, motion 3A, moved by Mayor Sandra Easton and seconded by Councillor Timmers. Whereas in 2016, the agricultural industry across the Niagara region experienced extremely dry growing conditions that occurred during critical plant growth and crop production, development periods, and lasted for an extended period of time. And whereas growers with access to water for irrigation were in constant cycle of trying to keep up with their needs, which put great stress on existing aging infrastructure. And whereas in some cases growers without access to water had to walk away from entire crops. And whereas the Region of Niagara's Agricultural Policy Action Committee has recognized agriculture as a key economic driver for the region and has established a working group to identify specific gaps in government policy, infrastructure, and human resource needs to resolve the inequity of access to irrigation for growers in the region. And whereas the Irrigation Working Group at its meeting of February 24th, 2017 agreed on the following. The agricultural sector in the Niagara region needs a strategic plan for agriculture irrigation, that the plan needs to gain consensus from all applicable stakeholders and ministries. Identified infrastructure needs will need to incorporate best environmental and efficient water usage practices, and that there will be a long-term need for large private and government capital investment to implement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Lincoln requests that the Region of Niagara's Agricultural Policy Action Committee support the Irrigation Working Group's action plan and its effort to build a region-wide strategic plan for agriculture irrigation, as well as notifying the following to be notified: the region, all area municipalities, the Regional Agricultural Policy Committee, the Grape Growers of Ontario, and the Wine Council. You've heard the motion. It's my understanding that it requires a 2/3 vote. There's two councillors not here tonight, so we have 7 voting. So I see the clerk. Through you, Will.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The actual 2/3 majority was required for the waiving of the procedures. Simple majority is required at this stage.
Thank you for that clarification. So you've heard the motion. Your pleasure on the motion? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors. Mr. Clerk, if I could ask you to ensure that a copy of the motion, once it's ratified, goes to the chair of the APAC committee, Councillor Bill Hodgson, and also clerks in the region of Niagara. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Item number 18 is announcements, and are there any further announcements? Councillor Njima?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce Outstanding Business Achievement Awards. I've announced this before, but it's sneaking up on us. So get online and register for Wednesday, March 29th, 2017. You can register online at lincolnchamberofcommerce.ca or by calling 563-5044. It's being held again at the Inn on the 20.
Very good, Councillor. Thank you. And Clerk Kalasa.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just for the information of the public that might be viewing, all Lincoln residents are invited to participate in a Town of Lincoln visioning process focus group, which will be occurring tomorrow, March 7th, Tuesday, March 7th, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Fleming Center to provide input on the town's vision, mission, and values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brunet.
Just a very quick comment. I know we'll be talking about it at infrastructure later this week, but back about 3 months ago, we had a meeting at the top of Mountain Street with some regional representatives, the mayor, Councillor Patrieve and I representing Ward 2, and the Niagara Regional Police to talk about this council's, continued discussions to have speed reduction in the municipality and to look at truck traffic coming down the mountain into the downtown core. So if anybody has been up coming down Mountain Street over the last few days, you will see that the new sign has been installed by the region. They ran into some rock, which caused some delays, but the sign is there now. I believe it's 8 by 8. It's a huge sign. You can't miss it. Talking about steep grade, making sure that those trucks that are coming down understand that they're coming into an area where they need to slow down. So very happy to see that, but we also need to have that 50-kilometer sign move back, as we talked about at that meeting. But just if anybody's wondering what's going on there, that's all been predicated by the mayor's continued discussion about truck traffic and speed reduction of this council. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anything further? All right. There is no closed session this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Timmers that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw, number 2017-15, to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by council resolution. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Brunet that bylaw number 2017-15 read a first time, be now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in our community and our country. I encourage you to care for those around you, and remember, we live in Lincoln, where citizens strive to be good neighbors and children are encouraged to achieve their very best. The business of this town council meeting having been completed, is circulated and posted, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr.